Welcome to Sociology. This is my channel and my name is Kerry. Hello, so I'm just jumping in before we go to the Alusha Smock Dress sew along. So I've just made some notes. So it's the Nerida Hansen Alusha Smock Dress. I just finished it, so I just wanted to say how I went with the instructions and everything. The instructions were really easy to follow. I just had to laugh at how they divvied up the size ranges. So I haven't looked at what the lower size ranges are, but the bigger size ranges are down as full fat milk. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm not quite sure. Let me know in the comments what you think. Anyway, so I chose to do this one here because I hate doing gathers. So this is just too much gathering overload for me. So I did a nice simple one here. So just gathers here front and back. It went okay. So yeah, the instructions were easy to follow. In some parts though, it did flip between doing the binding and then it would skip to the ruffles of a sleeve, and then it would go back to the binding, and then it would go back to the ruffles of the second tier of the dress. Instead of doing all like binding in one go and then all the tiers or whatever, option A, option B, I did option B separately. It did flit a bit to and from, but it wasn't a massive issue. It's just, I think it would have been a nice, better flow if it had done all the binding and then all the ruffles. Anyway, that's just my personal preference. But as far as following the instructions, really easy to follow, simple, straightforward. The pattern itself, I based on size 22. So there's quite a lot of ease in the pattern, which is why I did the 22, because I looked actually at the garment measurements. I'll put them up here. The garment measurements for my size was let me just see, because it goes A, B, C, D. So A is the chest bust size, and that had that was 146 centimeters, so 57.5 inches, and that was for a body measurement of 132 centimeters. So that had quite a lot of ease in it. Had so looking at my notes, it had 14 centimeters ease in that, so that's really good. And the waist had 17 centimeters ease. So the waist for body measurements, I went on 120 centimeters, and the actual pattern for the waist was 137 centimeters, which is a 54-inch waist. So I had lots of ease in it. So again, I had 17 centimeters extra in that on the round, and the length was let me find it. So garment measurement length was 119.5 centimeters from shoulder to the hem. So that was the length. I'll put these measurements up so you can have a look at them. So that was the sizes, so plenty of ease. Now you'll see on this picture here, the underarm bit here, when you put your arms up, pulled up, and I think I had to should have done an adjustment on the shoulder. So I'll show you the after what I did with that. I actually pulled it up and, you know, took off like a wedge. I helped a little bit, but there was this really weird dip in the front portion of the bodice, and you'll see that in this picture, but the back is straight. And I kind of wish I'd have chopped it off and made that straight as well, because the dip made the gathers, I don't know, I just didn't like it. I think that's why I brought it all up as well. So that was another thing I did. I used 112 centimeter wide fabric, even though the minimum was 137 centimeter wide. But I don't think I'd have wanted any more gathers in that, to be honest. One, I hate doing gathers because it takes so long. I know I should get a gathering foot. I will invest. And two, for the amount I did, when I fit it on 112 centimeters, you'll see in the sew along, it was enough. The gathers were enough. In my personal opinion, for me, the gathers had enough. There were enough there, let's say. So I only had 15 centimeters less off the width of the fabric. So I only lost 15 centimeters of gathers on the front and 15 on the back, so 30 in total. So it was quite a lot, but I think it didn't need any more. Personally, I didn't think it needed any more. So anyway, yeah, more gathers I've written. More gathers would have done me in. So yeah, the binding was a bit tricky for me. It was a bit weird because you attach it like a t-shirt neckline, t-shirt rib, but yeah, it was a bit weird because you had all the raw edges, whereas when you attach a t-shirt rib, you overlock or serge it on because it's stretchy, but this is a woven, and yeah, I don't know, I trimmed some of my seam allowance because when you turned it over, you follow the instructions to turn it under. So for example, I've stitched this on, and then you stitch it back and stitch it down. Well, the bit inside wasn't covering the raw edge, so I trimmed it down a bit so it looked a bit better. So I did that extra step that wasn't in the instructions. It's just for me. What else did I say? Yeah, I don't know if this is the norm, but you had to do 2 rows of stitching from side seam to the middle, and then another 2 rows of stitching side seam to the middle to the other side seam. So it's like 4 rows of stitching altogether. Is that the norm for gathers? I mean, I don't do a lot of gathers because it's one of those things I avoid, like binding. So I presume it stops it from snapping halfway through, I guess. And if you were doing the full width of fabric, then that would be a big issue, I would imagine. So anyway, just comment below if that's the norm for gathers. And I think that might be all I have mentioned with the pattern. I think everything else was fine. Yeah, so picture of me wearing it and a few stills at the end. Comment down below what you think. The pattern is by Nerida Hansen Fabrics in Australia. She does do international shipping. And I didn't use one of her fabrics this time. I used one from a local sewing shop called Lizzie's Quilt Shop, which is why the width wasn't very wide, but I'd use a quilt width again for that pattern any day because there was enough gathers for me. So anyway, that's just my opinion. Yeah, let me know what you think down below, and I hope you enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you on the next one. I haven't done the fabric haul yet. I'm still putting it off, and also I still have to do my cushion covers, which my husband is not happy about because they're still sitting there going, when are you going to do these? Well, I've just got a dress to make first. Oh, okay, I'll get to it. Anyway, I hope you're all well. If you can, please give me a like and subscribe if you haven't done already. It really helps me out. It gives me the energy to keep making videos. So yeah, really appreciate it. And thank you to all that already subscribed, like and comment. It really does help me and make my day. So thank you very much, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video. Okay, bye.
In this video, I'm going to talk about how to make the Alusha Smock Dress from Nerida Hansen Fabrics in Australia. So the pattern pieces comprise of a front, a back. I'm doing option B, so it's just a skirt, and then the binding for the neck. So this is the option I'm doing. And here are all the pieces cut out, ready to go. Fabric ready, 112 centimeters wide quilting fabric from Lizzie's. Here I am just placing on the top and cutting. So here you can see that the pattern is much too wide for the fabric, by about 15 centimeters. So I'm just going to fold that over and place it on the fabric by removing that 15, and then it fits on nicely on the fold. So this is the top with the gathers. Yeah, and this is how much we're losing. Actually works out better, to be honest. Less gathering. So here for option B, actually I didn't mention this at the start, but you have to actually add on 34 centimeters to the length of the pattern instead of it being included, which is a bit strange, but anyway, so 34 centimeters is added on to that pattern piece. Here I am, just cutting out the skirt with that extra 34 centimeters added. Next, the binding. So this is obviously going on the diagonal, the bias, following the arrow on the pattern piece, and this will be around the neckline of the top. Here I'm just marking in the darts, ready for sewing, and the darts are only at the front of the top. Quite a long dart actually. Next, just pinning those darts in place, ready to sew. Okay, ready to straight stitch on the sewing machine, and this pattern strangely allows 1 centimeter seam allowance rather than your traditional 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. Here I am using pins and not clips. Sorry, I'm old school. Now I'm just tying off the ends of the darts. I never used to do this until I watched The Closet Historian, and this is what she does. And she's pretty good, so I'm not going to argue with her. Next, press the darts upwards. Just getting ready to line up the shoulder seams now. I'm putting the right sides of the fabrics together and lining up the front and back shoulder seams. And just pin that in place, ready for straight stitching using a 1 centimeter seam allowance again. Onto the machine, 1 centimeter again, don't forget to reverse at the start and at the end. Curious question, does anybody sew over their pins? I used to, but I have had a few needle breaks, so don't do it anymore. And first time serging or overlocking the seams together for this step. Many more to come. Not sure why there are so many different angles of this, but this is the seam, the underarm that will be on arm and side seam that will be pinned and stitched together on the sewing machine. Again, using a 1 centimeter seam allowance straight stitch. And you know the drill, serge again or overlock straight after. If you don't have an overlocker, you can zigzag too. Here I'm clipping the corners just to add ease in that curve when worn. Another tip I picked up off the closet is starting to do little triangles. I used to just snip it before that, not a triangle. And here it is, the first start. As you can see, and this will be a problem later, the underarm pulls up when I lift my arms onto the binding next. So you can see the instructions there. And tape measure at the ready. So for this you have to measure the neckline all the way around and add on 2 centimeters, and that's how much binding you need. So the binding I cut, I actually only needed to take off 1 centimeter in the end. And actually, when I actually put it onto the garment neckline, I probably could have taken off another 2 centimeters as it was too much. With the right sides together, fold in half and stitch 1 centimeter down the edge. Straight stitch. Press open the seams when finished. With wrong sides together, we're going to fold over lengthwise and press with the iron. And then this is the little bit that I spoke about at the start, where you attach the binding to the neckline like a t-shirt rib. So it tells you to line up the side seam at one side seam and keep both layers together, all raw edges together, all right sides of the fabric facing each other, and pin all around. So this is where I found out that my binder was a little bit too long still. So I unpicked it and I just laid it inside the other end. Probably should have re-stitched it, but you know, anything for a quick fix. So here it tells you to measure 0.5 centimeters and stitch the binding to the outside of the neckline. Right sides together, all raw edges lined up together. And then snip your neckline all the way around. Here I'm doing my quick snipping now, not the triangles. Whoops. Here I found that there was too much seam allowance hanging over when I had to flip the binding around to stitch on the inside. So I trimmed it and then ironed it with my teeny tiny craft iron and then pinned them all down. Sorry, I'm not quite sure why this shot is a little bit blurry, but you can see I'm pinning that all the way down. Next, I am stitching it again 0.5 centimeters away from the edge from the top, so blind stitching. I'm not sure whether I'm catching it on the inside or not, but I actually did okay, so that's great. Here I'm just hemming the sleeves, so I'm just double turning them up, roughly centimeter to 1.5 centimeters, pinning all around and stitching on the inside folded edge. On the sewing machine again, straight stitch both sleeves, and here what they look like There's a little bit of twisting, but I'm hoping that'll press out with the iron. Okay, on to the all-important pockets. So line up the pocket bag, right sides together. These are all matched up with the notches on the pattern. So we're just going to straight stitch again, 1 centimeter from the edge. And then it tells you to serge or overlock just that edge after you have stitched it. Once you've done the front and the back pocket bag, line them up together, right sides facing again, so pull the pocket bags out, line up the top edge of the skirt, pin all the way around the pocket bag, and then all the way down the side seam to the hem. Make sure everything's lined up nicely, pinned, and then again straight stitch around 1 centimeter seam allowance. Next, it asks you to serge or overlock, then over the seam and pocket bag and the side seam. I did this on the first side, but then I realised that the skirt has the selvage on both sides, so didn't actually need overlocking, so I just did the pocket bag. Next, turn your stitch to the widest stitch. Now we're going to prepare the gathers, and this comes in 2 rows at the front, and so resulting in 4 rows altogether. So it tells you to go from the side seam to the middle, and then from the middle to the side seam, and then repeat. So at the front you would have 4 lines of stitching on the front and 4 lines of stitching on the back, and then gather them to the desired length. Make sure you measure well, and tie off your gathering at the end when you're satisfied that it will fit and measures up correctly. Next, we're going to insert the top of the dress, the bodice, right side out to the skirt being inside out. That makes sense. So it results in the right sides of the fabric together, as you can see. And I matched up the side seams first, and then matched up the notches, making sure that there's enough gathers between each straight edge of the bodice. Now, this is where I first noticed the dip in the front of the bodice, and I probably should have squared it off at that point, but I didn't. So here I'm just attaching it. I've got about 3 different angles for this, I'm not quite sure why. This is the back of the sewing machine, so I'm attaching and sewing this on 1 centimeter. This is from the front, going over the curves. I did have a problem at first, my thread came undone and I had to repin it all again, which was really annoying, but anyway, I got it done in the end. And then finally coming to the end of the attaching of the bodice to the skirt. And serge it all together, or overlock the edges so there's no fraying fabric. Now onto the home straight. I'm just overlocking the hem of the skirt, or serging the hem of the skirt, and then I will turn it up and pin it. So I'm having a fight with the machine here, not quite sure what's going on. Next I'm turning up the skirt roughly 2 centimeters, hem, pinning all the way around. I'm using my little gauge here, so it's roughly 1 inch, 2 centimeters ish, and yep, and then I'm going to stitch all the way around. I like to use the overlocking stitch as the guide, so just stitch through the overlocking until it's all done. And here it is, finished. You can see that strange dip at the front. I like the straight edge at the back. I think the back looks fine, but there's a weird little dip, so you can see I'm pulling up the shoulders, which makes it look a little bit better. I'm not sure, what do you think? I thought that it needed pulling up at the shoulders, like I took a wedge out of the shoulders from the neckline. I don't know, I think it looks a bit better, but I'm open to comments. Wiggling around here, so just some stills of me, front, neckline, and just a little side view there. I'm pulling up the shoulders just to see what that front bit does. Cheeky little side shot. Yeah, what happens when you pull up the arms, it pulls everything up. Back shot, back looks fine. Yeah, it's just the front bit I'm not sure about. And then last picture is where I've taken out the wedge. It looks a little bit better. It hasn't got a gaping neckline. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave me a comment below to see what you think. Thanks, bye.